this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Starting to sort out Derek's plants. This is going to look like repotting played backwards, because I'm going to do the media and the pots first before I even get the plants out. There's method in my madness. Stick with it, all will become clear. Now I am limited by the number of pots, because this is all the small pots I've got until I go to Burnham's where I can top up. But there is quite a few here. I've got several sizes. I've got really tiny ones. The next size up, which is that one, and then I've only got two of these. The next size up, which is the same height but wider, so it makes it a slightly bigger pot. So those are the three that I've got. Two of those only, three of those only, and then these ones that are probably the ones that are going to get used the most anyway. I've actually got 2, 4, 6, 8 of those. Then we move on to the next size. So, and those I've actually got quite a few of, but those are too big for the majority of the plants. So I'm limited by the number of pots. These are ideal. I've got 8 of those. Those are next best, slightly bigger, because there were some plants a bit bigger. And this time I'm not hacking off old bulbs. I'm going to try and keep the plants as intact as I can, unless there's any rotting ones, in which case they'll obviously come off. So we're only looking at about 10-12 plants out of 20. So I'm limited by the pots. Now the theory, when I get the cat hair out of my bowl, that's been in the grow room, they don't go in there. How can I get cat hair in there? It gets everywhere. Right, now, you'll laugh at this, perhaps, maybe, you might think I'm nuts. This is my coconut husk, or rather it isn't. This was my normal coconut husk, and I've been sitting by the computer with my pair of scissors, listening to some music, cutting it up. Very therapeutic. So there are no large pieces left now, we only have small pieces, suitable for small plants with either no roots or not very good roots, I suspect. We don't know this yet. So this is now a much smaller size, and any big bits, I've still got my scissors, any big bits I spot that I've missed, I'll have them. Don't want any big bits, I want this nice and tight. So that's that. I've got my Burnham's bark, which is supposed to be medium, that really isn't. That's quite a fine mix of bark. There's some twigs and bits in it, but I can, you know, I can live with that. I've got charcoal, and you won't have seen me use this before, I doubt. This is Cornish grit, rock hard. Can't break that. So it never breaks down and puts really good aeration into the mix. Brilliant for bonsai, that stuff. Mixed in with other stuff. Now, this is not scientific, but it's as good as it's going to get. And as I said, this is going to look like repotting backwards. First of all, some mix, right? One, shall we use imperial or metric? Let's be modern. That's a metric handful, followed by another metric handful. So that's 2 metric handfuls of the coconut husk. And to that we're going to add 2 metric handfuls of bark, without that flipping great twig. Very scientifically measured, this. I mean, I could use a cup, I suppose, but my handfuls are reasonably accurate. So that's now half and half, basically. Half bark, half coconut husk. It's already looking like quite a nice mix there. I'm using the coconut husk to retain moisture, but not big lumps, and the bark, hopefully, for some sturdiness in the mix. And then I'm going to use 1 metric handful of charcoal, at which point my hand gets dirty. Now let me just mix that, because I might want more. Nope, I'm happy with that. I go by colour with the charcoal, you know, the amount of black that's there. I don't want it like half the mix black. It's about a quarter-ish. So that's that. Now we've got dirty hands, so we'll wash them. So that's going to be a problem. I've washed all my towels. I'll use the grow room one. So I keep one by the entrance to the grow room because, well, if you know anybody who has anything to do with orchids, your hands are always wet, and I don't like wet hands. I like to dry off in between. Right, and then we're going to have one handful of grit, and then I'll mix that in. I already know I want more, so 1 and a bit. Why have I measured this? I'll show you. As I said, this is really scientific. Normally I do the media after we've got the plants out, looked at the roots and tidied the plants up under the tap and all that. Well, why I'm doing this first is this. One. Two. You get what I'm up to now? If I'm limited by the number of pots, I don't want to mix up too much mix first. I'd like all the mix the same, where possible, or as near as damn it. And I only want to mix up enough for the pots I've got. So why not fill the pots up and find out how much you've got? That's the theory. And then all I've got to do is, when I've got a plant ready, just empty it out, put the plant in, tip it back in gently. Right, now we've got to remember what we did before. 1, 2, 1, 2, and this time, before I get my hand dirty, 1 and a bit, and 1 dirty one. Right. So in theory the mix hasn't really changed now. I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not measuring this as silliness to try and get it absolutely precise, like counting the numbers of pieces of grit. We're not going to be silly, we just want it somewhere near the same. And I want to know how much to mix up and how much I've got. You see where this is going? We're only halfway there yet. What's the next thing that I'm going to do? The next thing I'm going to do is start getting some plants out of their pots. How many plants do I get out of their pots? As many as I have pots to put them in, which is why I want to do this now. And again, make sure I've got enough media to be able to repot that number of plants. So we're getting there, that's the theory. So I've got these 2 slightly larger ones here. Hopefully there'll be something suitable. Excuse me. Right, all that's left now are these tiniest little ones, and I think they're too small, personally. That is a tiny little pot, isn't it? What am I going to get in there? 1 pseudobulb and a growth. And it's going to dry so fast. Now I'm going to stick these tiny ones, I'm going to reject, and the larger ones, I know 2 plants that may go in those larger ones, or at least one of them, and that's the 2 cotyledons. Because they're the same, they'll both go in the same pot, so they will need a larger pot. So that wasn't a bad guess. We haven't got much left over, and the cotyledons will probably go in a different mix, so I'll just that's all that's left of my first bag of the cocoa fibre. So I've now got to open another bag and go into the soaking in the bucket saga, which is just, it really isn't a big deal. I'll use my filter jug water rather than tap water, because that reduces the content down to help rinse it, and do a few rinses with that, and then the final rinse, final soak and rinse will be with RO water. I'll get there in a minute, come on brain. Right, so that little bit that's left there can be for something else. It's a suitable mix for lots of things, and you notice this time for once what's different about the coconut husk. It's dry, yeah, because I was mixing it up in advance, and there we go. So that's the start of the process, is to get a mix that I like the look and feel of and the sound of. You know, there's some thought gone into that mix for what I want. The grit should help, you know, keep it aerated. We've got a substance in there, the cocoa husk for holding moisture. We've got the bark for hardness that will wet but won't hold moisture much, yeah? And then we've got the charcoal to help keep it sweet and stop it going off so quick, so that these plants hopefully can stay in their pots at least 2 years and maybe longer. That's the theory. I want to disturb these plants the least possible number of times until they get going and get some decent roots on them, because I doubt if they've got decent roots, and I hope I'm going to be surprised, but I doubt it. We shall see. A lot of it will depend on how long they've been in those pots and have they started their recovery yet. Yeah? So we shall see. So that in effect is part one. Well, treading on grit down here, it's all crunchy. And I'm going to leave it at that. I know that sounds odd because you haven't even seen a plant yet, but now that I know how many pots I've got, I can go and look at the plants and select that number of plants. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's 10 pots with enough media to do those 10 plants. Because obviously when I tip it out, and when it goes back in the same pots, there won't be much pressing down and these pots are full. So with a plant in there, I won't use that much. There'll be a bit left over, so that I know I've got enough to do 10 plants. I will select 10 plants and then we'll come back for part 2, where our 10 plants will come out of their pots. Very, very careful not to muddle up plants and labels, absolutely imperative, such that I'm going to have new labels with me and a pen, and probably replace the labels as I go, because some of them are virtually unreadable. But what I'm not going to do with these is throw the old label away, because some of those old labels have got history on them, and they're probably recording how long Derek's had the plant, which in some cases, you know, is well, 15 years more in some cases. So we'll go from there. So that's it, that's the media I'm going to use. Why I've done it this way round. As I say, we normally just get the plants out of the pot because I know I've got suitable media and I know I've got suitable pots, but I'm not normally doing a bulk repot in pots that size. That's the problem this time round. It's the tininess of the plants and therefore the small pots. Most of these are Oncidium types. Most of them are actually Odontoglossums, but most of those would have been renamed. And a lot are crossed with Cochleoda, which is something we don't hear much of nowadays, because I think most of those got reclassified along with the Odontoglossums. So a lot of them just got buried in the Oncidium sort of genus, which messed a lot of things up. Still, progress, they say. And I'll see you in part 2, where we'll get some plants out, see what roots we've got, and go from there. See you next time. It was the strangest repotting video ever, not a plant in sight. Bye bye.